Hello, my name's Harriton Wadko. Welcome to our program. The first segment, you met Marco Batricevic, and now you're going to meet Alex Mihailovic. Now, you just watched his 2.5-minute introduction. What a calling card, Alex. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
And congratulations, you're in Manila, mabuhay, and welcome to the Philippines. Is this your first time?
It's my second time. I've been here for 4 months, though, this time, and I don't want to leave, to tell you the truth. I love this country.
Love the heat.
I absolutely adore the heat. Being
And
from
the women.
Canada, oh, don't even talk about the women. Beautiful women. Some of the most beautiful in the world.
Alex, tell us about your work. It's very, I see that clip, and I saw the other 17-minute clip, and I was quite impressed. What a media production. What have you been doing? How have you been doing this?
Well, you know
and
what?
where?
I've been doing this for about close to 15 years, television in general, and then news for about 12 years. The reason I got into this business goes back to Marco and the people of Serbia. I've spent a few years there with the United Nations as a media relations officer, saw just how much the media skewed things, and realized the best way to change things is to get into the belly of the beast. So when I came back to Canada, right away, it took a little bit of time, a couple of years, but I got back into media relations, and then straight from media relations into the media itself.
And you're right in the crux of it. You're right there where you're now a news anchor as well as foreign relations specialist, simply because of your travel.
Yes.
It must have been very painful to cover the Balkan states, Yugoslav, during the time of chaos, crisis, and the disaster that went on there.
Well, what was painful was, as I mentioned, being a media relations officer for the United Nations and trying to convey the message of what really is going on the ground to the media itself. The media wouldn't listen. It had a preset agenda, which we know happens sometimes, and with that preset agenda, they pushed forward. So a lot of the things that were happening on television weren't factually happening on the ground.
Exactly. But when you have video behind you, support, and you're interviewing the right people, how do people in media change, how do I phrase this question? Is media the truth?
Not necessarily. And I would argue that there's no such thing as unbiased media anymore, unless you're looking at the level of, as you saw, some of the stuff I did is local news, and I did local news in Toronto, Canada for a while. Now, local news, you can't really mix into it too much. It's either a murder or a cat stuck up in a tree or something that's actually happening.
News reporting.
News reporting, something that doesn't really affect too many people. But once you start tapping into government, be it municipal, provincial, federal, or multinational, such as the United Nations, or something that's going on in the world that maybe NATO's involved in, you start seeing that there's a trickle down of information happening that gets into news organizations. Every news organization that I've ever worked at has a certain kind of bias.
So it's called politics.
Absolutely.
And politics and bias, the two words come across, and it does not necessarily equate to what we call the truth.
Absolutely.
It's a perception that is generated, created, promoted, and to brainwash the viewers.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's very easy if somebody's not there to get a message from a certain place and to believe that that's what's actually happening. So as a foreign affairs specialist, and this has gotten me into a lot of trouble on air, I try to break it down from the other side. So if it's something like the Ukraine right now, we know in Ukraine there's a war going on with Russia. Now, Russia will say there is not a war happening there, but there are Russian military personnel on the Ukrainian side of the border. However, the fact is people don't look at the timeline what really happened here. Everybody's blaming Russia for an invasion into Ukraine. The fact of the matter is the president that people wanted to get rid of, that the protests were happening initially, that person stepped down. He was willing to step down, signed off, reduced his own powers, but somehow, from somewhere, there was enough pressure to get the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian people to want to fight even harder, and didn't even care what the guy that they were against, that he said, okay, I'll do exactly what you want me to do. And that's how a war started. So you start thinking, well, you know what? Maybe it's not the Russians that are doing this. Maybe NATO's poking the bear, which is done over and over again when it comes to Russia.
So pressures, interest groups, and whatnot. Hang on. Media. And I may not be telling the truth. I may be fooling you. But either way, the problem is, with this platform, you can't say anything. I'm right in your face. I'm telling you what the truth is. And all you can do is take your shoe off and throw it at this television. Hang on. Let's see how far that goes. While you work the streets, while you work the truth, as you try and find out the real truth, does the truth really matter for you, Alex? Alex the person, Alex you, not necessarily your producer, not necessarily proprietor, the owner of the broadcast? Do you try to go out to look for the truth?
I will give people one of two things, either the truth or what's not being told. So people can make their own decisions at least, because even the information that's trickled down to me, let's say from a major broadcaster, from the Reuters, let's say, the information that we get fed from a different press organization, Associated Press, I don't have 100% access to where they are necessarily, but I will give you the other side so that you can yourself look at the information that you have gotten from, let's say, source A and source B, and then you break it down and you figure it out, because the truth is always someplace in the middle.
That's where the viewers have to find. That's what they have to look for. Now, in your case, what are the different types of media practitioners? You've got the news reporters, you've got those that analyze, to talk news TV, that try and break down to try and identify the truth. And then, of course, you've got government that will promote it. They want to promote specific truths. Now, how do you as a practitioner, where would you stand? How do you identify one or the other? How could we help viewers, in other words, identify the truth amongst the mush of half-truths and reportage that goes on?
Well, that's why I kind of like the talk show circuit the best, because we have a chance to argue, and people can then watch at home and say, well, hey, I agree with this guy or with that guy. That, at least some truth comes out of that.
Some truth.
Some truth, some truth. Well, I'd say probably a lot of truth, because people can figure it out for themselves. People are smart, and we keep forgetting that. And I think when it comes from the news business, a lot of times we try to spoon-feed information in the most banal kind of way. That's not right. People have intelligence at home. All they need is at least some information. And when you have 2 sources or 3 or 4 sources of information coming, they can break it down themselves. When it comes to reports themselves, well, it depends again, like I said. If it's a local report, it's not very often that a local reporter is going to start, going off in a wrong direction if it's a murder case or something like that. These are pretty basic situations which don't really change that much. I remember as a young reporter, the first thing I wanted, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do my first murder. And after you do 2 or 3 murders, it's just like, you know what, they're all the same, really. So that kind of stuff really doesn't change too much. It's when you get into the government levels, that's when it's our job. And what you said just a little while ago, if it's good news coming from the government, that's your job, government. That's what you're supposed to be doing. When it's bad news, you screw up, well, that's what we're here for.
Now, you've been in the Philippines 3-4 months. I'm sure being a practitioner, a professional media practitioner like yourself, you have seen local TV. Now, Marco's been here 10 years, and he's seen local TV. In fact, he understands a lot of it. Now, I know I'm not going to ask you to talk about the politics of the country, because you're really not supposed to. But you do watch local media and how things work. How do you find local TV based on what you've seen, your short experience? What do you see?
It could be done even better. I think the information that's coming through, the practitioners that I see, the people that are on TV, the reporters and news anchors are good at what they do. They're very good at what they do, but it could be done even better. When in Canada, just working at a local station in Toronto, which was the #1 station in Canada actually, we had some of the best people in the business there. But every 6 months, we'd have consultants come in, so we do it just a little bit better. Because you forget sometimes, especially after years of doing something, you need a refresher. And that helps a lot. So it's just little tweaks, little changes here in the way news is done would make a world of difference. And, I'm not the biggest fan of Americans, but when it comes to TV, they do it right.
They do it right. Marco, how have you found Philippine TV? Not that you watch very much, unless you watch Chris Aquino and everything else like that.
True. Well, I like the news. No, I sometimes watch the news, but more or less they all report the same thing. I'm yet to find a station who will criticize more directly certain issues.
Would you rather listen to criticism, or, for example, with me, I had to explain what we did earlier, the exercise of trying to introduce Balkan.
Yes.
I went straight to the introduction, Balkan,
Correct.
Location, price, kind of food, from where it's come from, etc. But I did not go in and talk about, well, their beef is a little softer than the others. Why? Because they have the specific innovation of how they boil it or whatnot. Criticism, critical thought, injecting discourse we don't do that in TV here, do we?
I think we
No.
don't. Yeah,
We
but
don't.
just like us, no. If I'm into the restaurant business, and then if somebody gives me a criticism that I think is good for my restaurant,
You
I
listen.
don't, I listen. I don't take it personally, and I appreciate that sometimes more than hearing the good side.
Yeah, there you go. I like the way you say that. You appreciate criticism more.
Yeah, because it can only improve my business.
Alex, why is it world leaders, people who are in power, don't like being criticized.
Oh, they don't like to see anybody to see the dark side, do they?
Yeah, why is that? How come him as an entrepreneur? He's a normal person.
Because he's a businessman, and businessmen understand
So
business
the
sense.
politicians are not businessmen.
Power is a thing that people get drunk on, and the thing is, once they see anything attacking that power of theirs, very often they get offended. And instead of taking the other path where politicians really should, and some of the best politicians I know, people that I actually like, they listen to criticism.
But not many, as in general, it's
Very
always the
little.
other way
I'd
around.
say it's about 10% maybe.
And yet, as people, as regular people as we are, when someone does tell us a criticism, constructive criticism that is, we appreciate it, correct? We do. Basketball or whatever we do, rowing or whatnot. Hey, no, do it this way. Golf, swing in a different way, go on a different angle. We appreciate because we learn. And yet, when we talk to certain people, especially politicians, on how they can improve it and do it better, they go down and hit you and say, you should not talk, you shouldn't talk about my bad things. You should talk about my good things.
Well,
is that the way they are abroad as well?
But that's the way they are abroad as well. But also in the Philippines, as I said, for when we look at media here and the way things are being done, little things would make big differences. Here also, when it comes to politics and the way that are done, last time I was here in 2011, from 2011 to now, massive improvements, I have to say. It's very hard to see from the inside, but when you're gone for a while and you come back, there are massive improvements here. However, it's little things that need to be changed. How about a transit commission for Manila, where we have one transit commission where everybody that you pay for to get on a bus or a subway or whatever it may be, or a jeepney, that it goes to one commission. That would be a nice thing because there would be less pollution in the city and it would be a lot more efficient and traffic would move faster. That's my #1 suggestion. That's all I got for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you see what I mean about criticism. For example, in that one issue, I have a long issue when it comes to that. I'd like to take down this company called City Motors. They sell Mitsubishi products. I bought a vehicle from them 2 months ago, early February. After 60-odd days, I still don't have an official receipt or a certificate of registration. I also don't have the certificate of stock report, which the LTO, the Land Transportation Commission, says it's illegal to take my car on the road after 37 days because over the penalty of 11,000 pesos, they will impound my car. Now, how is it I can go and buy in good faith under the Consumer Act, pay cash for a product that I'm buying in good faith, supported no less and authorized by a bank and an insurance institution, all documented, and yet when I take it on the road, they impound it. They take the car away from me and it becomes violative of the law. How is that even possible? Well, I'll tell you what. It's a very difficult situation and everyone's talking about it. Alex is right. That's a very good criticism. Put all of this in one, not the DOTC. That's just not good enough. Maybe the other issue is don't buy from City Motors. That's straight to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll come and analyze more issues that really surrounds media to help us understand our role. We'll be right back.